We've got quite a bit to cover today, so let's get into it. There was some major buzz in the community after a recent news story circulated, letting all of us know that the city was being presented with a project proposal. On March 18th, according to Tampa News Channel 10, the city council was to vote on, direct quote from the article, a $6.2 million project proposal was brought before Tampa council members on March 4th for the final design of the city center and the demolition of the abandoned warehouse.
Later on in the article, the Tampa Chief Financial Officer, Dennis Ruggiero, estimates that the project may come up to a hefty final price tag. $100 million. The proposed city center would be built into East Tampa, right off of East Hannah, an historically Black and underrepresented area of the city.
The city center is expected to include, according to News Channel 10, code enforcement, economic development, construction services, minority business development, workforce development, and information technology. All of that sounds really good. Except, if you can recall, the people of Tampa had a laundry list of items we needed to prioritize with our money. When we called for refunding the community, the city council told us they heard us, but they couldn't move any money from the police budget because of the pensions and salaries of the officers. This is why, they said, they had to increase TPD's budget to $13 million last year.
Aside from the $1 million line item motioned by Councilmember Dingfelder, no money was allocated to what the people called in to support last budget season. The $1 million line item was supposed to go into a mental health program, which we had called for an external, non-connected program like Cahoots. Instead, as far as we know, they are investing in a co-response program that will have mental health workers co-respond with cops. The exact opposite of what we called for. The people took our survey, and across racial lines and zip codes, the people were clear. Defund the police and prioritize housing, healthcare, childcare, jobs, Black businesses, and the alternative independent non-co-response mental health program.
On top of that, according to the same News Channel 10, a plan down the road is to move the TPD headquarters from its current downtown location to the warehouse location on East Hannah. This means there would be more policing smack dab in an already over-policed, dominantly Black East Tampa. On top of that, as history has shown, development like this is likely to cause huge amounts of gentrification. And while the city promises 500 jobs, it's not even guaranteed that all 500 jobs would even go to East Tampa residents. Even if they did, that's not nearly enough to make a $100 million investment worth it when there are so many unmet needs.
As you've seen on our previous episodes, the people in East Tampa are living with housing in disrepair, unable to pay for childcare, some people unable to afford rent. Small businesses all across Tampa are either shutting down or forcing their employees to come in and serve the public in a pandemic. So we're pretty pissed off that $100 million is being considered for a city center or any relocation projects while people still are suffering. I was pretty mad about it and wanted to make a public comment, but even though I was logged in, I was not called on to make a public comment. So I wasn't heard.
And, that's pretty wild because from what I'm hearing, People's Safety Coalition's own Tatiana Morales was also logged in, but not able to speak either. You know Tatiana, she's been on the Frontline Activist message a few times. It's a shame that City Council did not call on either of you, and I hope it's a coincidence, but we'll be watching from now on.
From the public comments that were heard, people had a lot to say about this proposed relocation of the Tampa Police Department's headquarters to East Tampa. These concerns were diverse in who they came from, but also in why this was not a good idea.
Representatives of residential committees from this area expressed concerns about gentrification, infrastructure, traffic, and what this relocation would symbolize. Residents expressed a very clear message that they expect City Council to pass this through, but that City Council must understand the multiple repercussions this decision would have.
Many people spoke about something as simple as traffic in the area being so congested already, and this project would extrapolate this issue even further.
Other speakers were concerned about whether the East Tampa community residents would actually have a say in this project and express ideas for how to make this building more integrated in the community if it were to be placed here.
Right. So what's interesting about this was that many speakers noted that this project would change the economic landscape of the area. Putting a project like this through would be beneficial for homeowners as their home value would go up, but rent would shoot up.
Unsurprisingly, this would impact lower income people in East Tampa and push them out of their place of current residence to somewhere where they can't afford. Does that sound familiar to you? If you said gentrification, that's exactly what this is.
People did not shy away from using that word to describe this action, so we know that the city council members heard it. Quite a few times, actually.
An alternative to spending the $100 million on this project was proposed by one of the commenters. That was, why move the whole building for $100 million when you can repair the current one and save more than $60 million of those dollars? And then, hey, imagine this. Put it back into East Tampa, into fixing the roads or any of the other things that folks have been calling for almost a year now.
I guess that makes too much sense and doesn't coincide with City Council's trend of hyper-investing into the police. At the City Council meeting, the council members were presented with a slew of information about the proposed $100 million project. It was on the agenda as item number 61 and number 62. The agenda items were pertaining to the beginning of the process, which would be an expense of over $6 million to begin demolishing the warehouse on East Tampa. This is essentially what will set the groundwork for the entire project.
And to be very clear, City Council knows damn well that there are people in East Tampa that do not have access to 3 meals a day, have no housing, are subjected to undesirable living conditions, and a host of other things. This is one huge reason why it's just a terrible investment. People have needs to be met, and we're spending $6 million to bulldoze a warehouse. After this presentation, Councilmember Goods decides it's a good time to clear up any confusion, as he states. Let's take a listen.
This $100 million or exceed $100 million is not for solely a police station. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
So I want to make sure the public understands that whatever PSAs you guys have out there, because there's a lot of miscommunication that this project is solely for the police department.
Yes, sir. Take the police building out of it right now. We're not dealing with that today. We're not to that point. We're dealing with the city center.
Listen carefully. The city representative says we're not to that point. What he's really saying is this is where it starts. They can pretend like the TPD headquarters move is a separate issue, but it can't even happen if they don't approve this project. And City Council, if you're watching, read my lips. There are human beings in your city with no food, no or limited housing, no jobs. Invest in the community, not in government buildings.
People over property, it's simple.
We're still dealing with rumors. Now, if we could ever get over rumors and have the citizens call us.
So good old Citro says it's all about rumors. If only people would call him, he says. By the way, People's Safety Coalition member Angel D'Angelo called council member Citro's office and left a voicemail the literal day the news dropped. Of all individuals that D'Angelo reached out to, only council member Carlson, who is absent at today's meeting, responded. Stop with the gaslighting and the lies, Citro. Say it with me.
Citro gotta go.
Get him out of here. I'm over it.
One of the reasons why I support, I'm going to vote yes today, and I think this is a good project, is because this is an effort that seeks to move government closer to the people. That creates accessibility. I think when this was rolled out, there was a lot of misinformation that came out, and I think a lot of that can be remedied through community engagement, trying to transform this into a debate on defunding the police. I do not believe at this time that that's something that's relevant to this center. The real issue is community engagement and safety.
Councilmember Vieira does make a good point about the need for accessibility with our government. And while that is a good point, it really falls flat when the people of East Tampa are suffering. Last year, Vieira and his colleagues unanimously supported an increase of $13 million in TPD. When Vieira was asked about it, he said openly he does not support defunding the police and instead supports reform. He's been pretty consistent on this subject, and as far as I'm concerned, Vieira can go too. He's not in tune with the needs of the people. He cares more about buildings and plaques than actual living people. It truly makes me sick. I got news for you, Vieira. People who are struggling to pay rent can't engage their government either.
I think we need to be careful to say, that maybe a little part of this is going to be sort of in the big picture planning of those entire 11, 12 acres. that includes the long-term potential move of the police department.
I have to respectfully say no on that, sir, because we have not acquired the property to do a public safety center. It's a whole separate issue.
Okay, all right, well then I stand corrected.
All right, so the police public safety issue is a different parcel, different vote, different day, different conversation. It has nothing to do with this. There we go. On record.
Okay, so I have a few things to say. First, I appreciate Councilmember Dingfelder taking the time to seek clarity. It shows us that he does listen to the people. But I also want to talk about how earlier Citro and Vieira said there's rumors and misinformation. These people get paid to do government work, and they were confused. They had to ask questions, which isn't a problem. But Citro and Vieira think we should know everything. Honestly, Councilmember Dingfelder doesn't always do right. Doesn't. But on this show, we can call out the good and the bad. So for that much, I will say good on you, Dingfelder. This time.
We know that this is the pathway to moving the police, and even if that winds up getting voted down in the future, the council has missed the point entirely. I truly believe this will result in more gentrification, and trust me, I would love to be wrong, but even if I am wrong, we still aren't addressing the root of the issues in Tampa. Poverty is causing so many of the problems in East Tampa. Housing, healthcare, black business support, childcare, reliable jobs, clean energy. These should be the priority, not a city center.
Exactly. What is so hard about it? Everybody should get to thrive, not just live, not just survive, but thrive. What people don't understand is these problems are systemic and they're intentional. Anti-Blackness does not always exist in the form of the more obvious overt KKK meetings. In fact, oftentimes it happens right in front of us, with 7 men, most of them white, but not all of them, that vote to increase police budgets and then only months later give the green light to support a $6 million demolition of a warehouse. As we said earlier, this city center is coming with a promise of 500 jobs. That's all well and fine, but 500 jobs won't even scratch the surface to meet the needs of the community. Are they hiring returning citizens? What about disabled black mothers, black trans women, and gender non-conforming people? What about black folks who never had an opportunity to go to college, let alone finish high school? I can guarantee these won't be the 500 selected for these jobs. But even if they were, 500 jobs is not enough. The anti-Blackness East Tampa faces result in black people being forced to live in substandard conditions. Projects such as those aim to build up the neighborhoods, which unfortunately lead to gentrification. Eventually, poor black people and residually other poor people in the area will be seen as eyesores and forced out.
Right. Gentrification is an ugly trend and is essentially just colonization at a city level. $100 million could make life better for so many people in East Tampa. And East Tampa is already beautiful. The most beautiful souls live in East Tampa. This city center might bring some benefits, sure, but the return on investment is so marginal. Why can't our city leaders invest in us? We're not going to stop fighting until black people and all the people in East Tampa who are traditionally left behind are prioritized.
In case you weren't clear, all 6 of the present city council members voted in favor of moving forward with the demolition. Carlson was absent from the meeting and therefore did not vote. Before we go, I just want to remind folks about something we highlighted in a past episode. Vanessa McCleary, who was being honored as she moved from her role in the city's housing department, in her exit speech, she made a tearful plea that the city council provide more funding for housing to support the staff and the constituents in need. These men in power all but cried to her, saying they wish they could have done more to help. You can. And you have everything you need to do so. Instead, you spend $6 million on this. Don't believe these men. If you're thinking about running for office, now is the time to start planning. All 7 of them need to go, and we need your help in order for that to happen.